Welcome, Sakshi. I'm very happy and glad to see you. You are in America, I'm in
Thank you.
India.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for giving me the opportunity to, have an interview with you and just share my experiences with you.
Sakshi, could you please share your vast experience from India, whatever you have done?
Okay, it's a long list of education, but yeah. So I have done my bachelor's of engineering, bachelor's of technology in computer science and engineering. After that, I went for like a job in industry for 1 year as a project coordinator. Then I understood like I am not that much into coding rather than managing things, because my role in that industry was also like managing the design, development, and testing team in a web design firm. So I went on to do my MBA, and while doing my MBA, I got an opportunity to do a research internship at Freie University, Netherlands,
Mhm.
and that was my first like experience with research, and I
Okay.
just loved every bit of it.
Mhm.
And after coming back from there, I took another course which was advanced research methods to understand more about how research methods are implemented and what do you need to know like if you want to go into research.
So it
So
was a
after
part
doing that,
of your this particular course you did it in your MBA.
yeah, it was part
Okay.
of my MBA curriculum that we could choose a research course as well.
And you did
So
it from LM Thapar School of Management, Thapar
yeah,
University.
once I was done with my MBA, I was still not sure like whether I really want to take the research path or I still want to go to the industry. So I went to work on with Philips as a sales officer for 1 year. But during that 1 year, I was not happy with my job and I just wanted to go back into like academia. So I started. So I was looking at Masters of Research abroad because I thought, okay, I have done a lot of education in India. I should go for an international experience now.
Mhm.
So while I was applying, so in Masters of Research, you don't get funding abroad. So you
Mhm.
have to pay a lot of fees in order to get into that course. And once you are there, then you can further move on to PhD. But I did not find it like very profitable to put in a lot of money for my Masters of Research. So I thought like, okay, I'll look into a course in India itself. So yeah, and I guess I was lucky because LM Thapar School of Management that year itself introduced the Masters of Philosophy course, the course I was looking for. So I just like grabbed on the opportunity, gave in my resignation, and just applied for it. I got into it, and yeah, it was a 2 years course where I did coursework regarding research methods and quantitative designs and experimental methods. And because my MBA was in marketing and information systems, so
Mhm.
I wanted to be related to marketing in my Masters of Research as well.
Mhm.
So, and when I started my MPhil, I realized that okay, I am interested in doing experiments that involve devices like eye tracking or EEG. So then I took on the course known as neuromarketing, and that actually gave me an idea like what I want to research in my Master of Philosophy. So once I was done with them, and all the like the entire 2 year experience was like it just made me sure of like yeah, I want to do a PhD after that. So then I
Mhm.
applied for PhD.
Okay, so how did you start preparing for your PhD program?
So in my masters only, I decided that okay, I again took a like course in India itself. But I know that in PhD there are a lot of funding opportunities that are available abroad as well. So I decided on applying to US and United Kingdom because both are renowned countries for their research expertise.
Mhm.
And so once I was decided on the country, I started looking into the universities that are working in the same domain.
Mhm.
Once I figured out like which departments are working in the domain, then I started looking at okay, what kind of PhD specializations are they giving. So I started making an Excel sheet based on the country, the university, the coursework, and then I started putting in information like what are the admission requirements, what are the courses they are offering, which one are the professors that I'm interested with in working with, and what kind of letter of recommendations do I require, and what is the funding structure as well as the fee structure.
So you
So
prepared
once,
the Excel sheet, complete Excel
yeah,
sheet. Okay, and
so
how
once that
many?
Excel sheet was,
Okay, so how many institutes are shortlisted?
I actually, so even though like the funding is available, initially you have to pay in application fee, which is in dollars. So it is quite expensive. So I decided that I won't be applying for more than 8 universities, but that 8 universities also costed me around a lot. So yeah, so I decided on 4 universities from United States, around 2 or 3 from United Kingdom, and one university from Netherlands. because I knew the professor there already and I was aware of his work. So yeah.
Okay. So the admission process, and then what about the exam? Like, which exam did you appear for?
So once that
To
sheet was ready, the first thing I had to do was go through my TOEFL and GRE exams.
mm,
And luckily, I got like better than the cutoff score in both the exams at first attempt. So I didn't go to any institutes. I prepared by myself. And yeah, you need to like give in like 2 to 3 hours every day if you're preparing for GRE, and you would be ready by 2 or 3 months. And for TOEFL, like it's basically an English exam. So if you understand the format of the paper and practice for like 15 to 20 days regularly, you would be
mhm,
able to crack it. So once I received my scores, I started working on my resume as well as my statement of purpose. Now, it took me a lot of time to perfect my statement of purpose. And once I was done with it, I actually sent it to a friend of mine as well as a professor of mine to get their recommendations or any changes that they're suggesting in the format. So
mhm,
once that was done, then I started emailing the professors for letter of recommendations. In most of the universities, you require 2 to 3 letter of recommendations, and you also have to like talk to the professors in advance and also intimate to them that okay, you might be sending the recommendations for 6 to 7 institutes as well. So yeah, I started doing that, and once my professors agreed to give me the letter of recommendations, I started looking at the application deadlines and I just started applying for it. And I was also sending them a reminder email that okay, this university has sent you the invitation, so it like you can now work on the recommendation as well. So
mhm,
yeah, and in most universities you are actually given an option in application where you can choose like 1 to 2 professors with whom you are interested in working with. So what happens is like when you write the name of the professors, those professors actually get your application directly, and if they are interested in working with you, then they would conduct some form of online communication, either a audio call or a video call, or they might talk with you over the email. So for my Georgia Tech interview, my supervisor actually had one-on-one video call with me where he asked about my current interests, what are my future plans, what I liked about his research, or what are my expectations from the PhD program, just to make sure that I understand what I am going into and like whether we are a good match or not. So once
mhm,
I had that conversation with him, after a month he had another call with me where he told me like, okay, like I think we are a good match and I would like you to offer the admission. Like they cannot offer you directly, but they can actually tell you that they have put in a word for you that they want to work with you, and then the admission department would send you an offer letter.
mhm.
So that's how it worked.
Yeah, so the next thing I would like to know about is about your SOP, the statement of purpose, like what content you have actually mentioned in that, and what are the key points which a potential PhD student should consider a must to write in the SOP.
So so there are different paragraphs in your recipe, and it basically entails all your life journey and how your life journey has finally gone to a point where you want to do this course. So first paragraph is basically a summary about what you have done so far and which program you are applying to and which university. From second paragraph, it depends whether you want to like start with your work first, or you want to start with your education first. So
Mhm.
initially I just told about my current latest work experience, and then I told about okay, this university I want to apply in this program of your university. Then I started with my bachelor's, like what I did in my bachelor's and how that paved a path for me to do my job and then my MBA. So in MBA, I started talking about like why I got interested into research, what happened, and like which courses I took, and what helped me in understanding more about like research methods or the quantitative techniques that we use. After my MBA, I talked about my work in industry and how that actually made me understand more about because my work was into consumer behavior, so that helped me more about getting first person into like how consumers behave in the market. And
Mhm.
then I talked about after doing my job, I went into masters of philosophy. So how masters of philosophy has helped me, what research question was there, how I answered it and everything. And then there are 2 paragraphs where you talk about like why this program is important to you, or why are you choosing this particular program only. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's how at the end
Okay,
you end it in
so
summary form.
this brings another question. If you apply to the US universities and UK universities, is there any difference in writing these applications and the SOPs?
Well, actually, I got to know about the difference when I started my PhD only. So when you're
Okay.
applying, these things are not noticed that much. Like even if you write in British English or US English, I think the universities don't look at your writing style. They're more interested on like what you have done so far and why do you want to come to the university.
Uh-huh.
Once you are here, then like all the writing that you are going to do in your courses and everything has to be based on the country you're in. So now all my settings are set to US English only. And yeah, it is difficult initially, but there are support courses from universities such as academic writing for international students or communication and presentation skills for international students. So you can do those courses along with your research coursework, and you can improve bit by bit. Of course,
Okay.
it's difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, is there any specific length of the statement of purpose, or you can write different paragraphs as much as you want?
There is no as such length that is mentioned, but some universities don't ask for statement of purpose, but then in their application itself, they provide a box where you have to put in all the information that is similar to SOP. So if
Okay.
you have like that kind of situation, there I think there is a constraint for some words, but mostly like most of the SOPs would be like 1 to 1.5 pages only. That's the kind of a concise information about your life. So you would be making like 5 to 6 paragraphs mostly.
Hmm. I would also like to know something about GRE score. So, what is
Okay.
an ideal GRE score to get in similar type of programs in the US?
Okay. So the university I am in, so it also depends on universities like how much weight they put on the scores along with your like statement of purpose and other things. So I got a score around 315 or 316 and I got into the university. So mostly in most of the universities scoring above 310 is good, but if you're talking about Ivy Leagues or if you're talking about certain some universities actually require you to score around 325 plus. Yeah, and for TOEFL they don't have any like cutoff, but their minimum requirement is to get a score around 100 from 120.
Mm-hmm. So then, how to decide for the financial support? Are all the universities providing financial support?
Oh, okay. So when I applied to like when I got offer from a few universities, the first thing I looked at like how much like scholarship I am getting and what I have to pay because that is really important. So not all universities provide financial support. Some universities you have to pay for your PhD as well, but some
Mm-hmm.
universities provide the support. So
Mm-hmm.
in my university and most of the US universities that I am aware of, so your tuition fees would be waived off, but you would be paying the mandatory fees, which includes the technology fee or your insurance, health insurance fee, and other costs. And you would be paying for your housing and like your living, like all the other expenses as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can either be appointed as a graduate research assistant or a graduate training assistant during your tenure in PhD. And you would be getting a monthly stipend. And now it depends from city to city and your living preferences, like whether that stipend is sufficient for you or not. So with me, my stipend actually covers all my costs, like my monthly costs. But I would suggest like you need to have some backup money with you, like some savings should be there in case of any emergency or if you're shifting somewhere or you need to pay your security deposit or any kind of like emergency. So there has to be some saving, but most of your like living expenses are covered by the stipend that the universities provide.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
what is the program structure like?
Oh, so the program I'm enrolled in is PhD in Cognition and Brain Sciences in the Department of Psychology at Georgia Institute of Technology. So my program is a 5-year program where you have to submit a master's thesis as well as a PhD thesis.
Mm-hmm.
Because I already had a master's of philosophy, so I submitted my master's thesis over here and it got accepted. So I'm on a track of PhD thesis directly. So it depends on that as well.
Okay, so it's very important to understand like master thesis means the coursework which you're talking about, or
No.
is it
So
different?
it is different. So what happens is like initially I am also doing the coursework, like the courses that are required, but because I did some courses back in India also, so one or two of my courses got accepted here as well, so I got credited for that, so I don't have to repeat them. But most of there are some core courses and there are some electives and you have to do all those core courses, and you can pick from the electives. Then there are 2 seminars that you have to do in your PhD, and along with that we also have a minor requirement which you can either which you can do in any other program if you want. So there are some courses you can pick from other disciplines as well. And master thesis is basically the first thesis that you submit. So in your first year you understand about like how the lab works and what
Mm.
is the area you're interested in, and you start developing a proposal which is kind of a short proposal as compared to your PhD thesis. So you start developing a master's proposal. So you do research and you write your dissertation for masters. Once that is
Mhm.
accepted, there are exams called prelims, and prelims are the exams that you have to qualify in order to be eligible for proposing your PhD. So after doing those prelims, you will propose for your PhD, and then you will be doing your PhD dissertation.
With your very rich experience so far from preparing for the PhD and then finally into it, what is that few things which you would like to share with the potential research students who are aspiring to do a PhD in the future?
Well, I would really suggest to do some research internship or research course before finalizing to do a PhD, because you are in for a long haul, and so you need to be sure of it. And
Uh,
don't be discouraged if you don't get offers from every university, considering like if you are moving fields like me, or if you are into an interdisciplinary field, it would be difficult to match yourself with some professor, but it is gonna happen eventually.
do you have plans to do a postdoc?
Right now, I am actually not sure like what I want to do after my PhD. And since it's just my first year, so I'm giving myself a lot of time to figure out like what is next after my PhD.
Okay, so how is your overall experience so far?
Well, it has been good, and I'm learning a lot of new things every day. And we have a very conducive environment in my lab. And because my cohorts are from a diverse culture, so it actually helps me in developing a holistic understanding of any concept that
Mhm.
we are discussing on. So it
Mhm.
has been good if you exclude the current external factors that are happening, like the pandemic and everything. So
I understand. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Sakshi. It is really, really good to have you on Import Hub.
thank you.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.